What's up, everybody? And today we're reacting to why Poland is preparing for full-scale war against Russia. This is by the infographic show. I used to watch and react to a lot of this channel back in the day, and I haven't done it in a while. And I saw they put this video out, and I thought it would be kind of interesting. I think you guys would agree. Don't forget, Detroit Become Human is still a thing. It's just I haven't got my stuff set up yet. We were traveling to a new place, and then we got sick, and blah, blah, blah. But I'm hoping to get some of that up soon. I'm probably going to go live and do that within the next week and start playing some more Detroit Become Human and finish that off. We have got Jedi Survivor coming out in April, so we need something to fill the gap between Detroit and Jedi Survivor. So if you've got an idea for a game, let me know in the comment section down below. And other than that, shut up. Let's pop this up and let's have a cheeky peek at what they've got to say.
There's a new military superpower dawning on the European continent, and no, it's not France, Germany, or even Britain. Poland has decided it's done messing around, and it's arming itself to the teeth. But why is Poland apparently preparing itself for World War III? Russia's invasion of Ukraine has served as an alarm bell for a Europe that for 3 decades was content to let the United States do all its military heavy lifting, while naturally complaining endlessly about U.S. militarization. However, the explosion of war in its backyard has snapped European powers out of their comfortable post-Cold War victory naps and
I think it snaps everyone out. Like it's give everyone a bit of a wake-up call, hasn't it? I don't think it's just Poland. It's quite a few people. You see a lot of people applying to be part of Europe or part of NATO now. So it's definitely shocked a lot of people. So I get it. I totally get it.
Suddenly, the continent has remembered there's a serious military threat right next door, and America is still an ocean away. Forget the baguettes and berets, it's time to start buying guns again. But Europe can hardly be blamed for dropping the ball on their own defensive spending. After decades of being prepared to wage an apocalyptic battle for global survival, the West breathed a collective sigh of relief, and billions of dollars in military spending was repurposed to civilian projects. Armies were demobilized, budgets were slashed, and a lot of military kit was either thrown into deep storage or donated to developing countries.
Can you imagine if we never had to fight a war? If everyone was like, we're never going to fight a war again, and everyone's happy with the land that they've got, nothing is ever going to happen again when it comes to war or fighting, right? It would never happen. But if that ever happened, which would be bliss on Earth, imagine how much money could be spent on progressing humanity to, like, space and technology. Just think about the US budget alone for the military, which is nuts. Imagine that getting put into NASA or something that's going to, or into the medical field and progressing development on, like, trying to cure cancer and stuff like that. Like, can you imagine how better humanity would be? Sad, isn't it, really?
With the rise of extremism, European militaries focused on waging small regional conflicts with logistics handled almost entirely by the US. The next major war would be one with hugs, or simply not fought at all, as Europe tried to bring Russia into the fold by deepening trade relations with their cranky neighbor. Yet all Europe managed to do was give Russia incredible leverage over them, because Russia wasn't done fighting wars to advance its national agenda. When war broke out in Ukraine, Europe was caught with its pants down, and despite having a combined GDP many times greater than Russia, they cannot outsupply Russia inside Ukraine. Poland was quick to take note, though, and overnight the country went on a dizzying shopping spree for all kinds of new military kit. Poland has good reason to want to buy absolute mountains of new tanks and other gear, and that's not an exaggeration. Had Russia's invasion of Ukraine been planned by anyone more competent, Poland could have found itself at ground zero of a new military struggle for Europe, and the major European powers could have done little if anything to help the nation.
Honestly, thinking about this, I don't think Poland has that much to worry about. Like, Ukraine are fighting them off. It's been over a year now. Ukraine are still doing really well. I don't think there's any need for it, but at the same time, I almost understand their anxiety, right? And you got to remember this: Ukraine's between Russia and Poland. They're in between, and they can't even get past Ukraine. So I get it. At the same time, Ukraine is getting bombed like fucking crazy. So there is that as well. But I don't know. I think it's more important that NATO as a whole gets bolstered, right?
Britain has been in decline as a military power for decades now, with its military shrinking to half of its size at the end of the Cold War. As an island nation, Britain's most important capability is its ability to send expeditionary forces abroad. And yet, during the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, the British military got the nickname the Borrowers for their tendency of bartering for pieces of kit that they were missing. Meanwhile,
it's true. It was always like, oh, I'll trade you this for that. You know, that was always a thing. But at the same time, like, I feel like that's a bit harsh because a lot of the stuff that people would borrow in on operations was like mostly trinkets, right? It was mostly cool things, cool like little pieces of equipment. It wasn't like essential stuff. Does that make sense? Like, we get what we need. It's more of a luxury or something cool to bring home. But at the same time, the US does that as well quite a lot.
their navy's been in significant decline, with their ships having to be in effect mothballed so their crews can be used elsewhere. In 2021, Britain's Parliamentary Defence Committee delivered a scathing report outlining significant problems with the Royal Navy, including a critical lack of offensive capability and too few surface ships and submarines. Germany's facing its own significant issues. Maintenance problems from a lack of qualified technicians as well as spare parts has meant that German pilots aren't getting the number of hours in the cockpit they need to remain proficient. The country is also incapable of meeting NATO's rapid response requirements without cannibalizing other units, leaving it in serious risk of being incapable of fighting a protracted conflict. France is about the only European power to maintain a significant military capability. We actually have little to criticize about France, except that its expeditionary capabilities are slightly lacking, but experience gained in counter-terrorism operations in Africa is helping to rectify the problem. We're not picking on Europe unfairly, though.
I still think when it comes to on-ground soldiers, I think the UK still has the best in the world, especially when it comes to special forces. On the other side of it, though, that doesn't really matter if you're getting, you know, bombs dropped from drones and stuff like that, right? So it's all well and good having great trained fighting soldiers, but if you don't have the equipment or technology to back that up, it doesn't really matter. The SA-80 is shit. And although they don't get given that really on operations anymore, they're still training with that at Lympstone, right? So I get it. I totally get it.
The simple fact is the continent has been coasting on the back of the U.S. military for decades. The Royal Navy prioritized retiring logistics vessels as a cost-saving measure. Why? Because any conflict they foresaw fighting would involve the United States and its massive logistics capabilities. Germany retired much of its ground-based air defenses. Why? Because any war it would be involved in would have assumed air superiority largely thanks to the United States. Since the Cold War ended, Europe evolved into a power that would complement U.S. warfighting abilities rather than be a battlefield force on its own.
Well, there's a reason for that, right? We've all grown comfortable together. We know that if the US goes to war, the UK is going to be there backing them up with soldiers on the ground. We know that, right? So I get it's like basically turn around and say, let's concentrate on what we're good at and help each other when we need it. And that's understandable. The only problem with that is if one of these countries goes rogue, whether that be France or the US or Britain or Germany, if one goes rogue, then if they concentrate on something that the rest of them are lacking, so like say the US has air support or if the UK has best ground soldiers, if they use that against them, it's going to cause trouble. Do you get what I'm saying? So you also need to be very self-sufficient.
Given the fact that Europe's favorite historical pastime was mercilessly slaughtering each other for thousands of years, this might not have been such a bad thing. Poland has seen which way the wind's blowing, and that it cannot rely on its European allies for national defense. The U.S. military is the most powerful in the world, but it's also half a planet away.
True.
And if history is anything to go by, and it absolutely is if you're Poland, then by the time the U.S. Army arrives in Europe in force, Poland would already be a battleground. Perhaps no nation in the world is as cursed as Poland, which has historically served as a convenient middle ground for major European armies to batter each other to pieces. That's because the nation has basically no defensive geographical features, allowing invaders to just casually stroll right on in at their leisure. Poland is done being Europe's punching bag and is aiming to field the most capable military inside of Europe. Polish Prime Minister Mateusz Morawiecki spoke to the nation on the eve of its Independence Day, stating the Polish army must be so powerful that it does not have to fight due to its strength alone. Judging by the amounts of weapon orders it's been putting in, this is far more fact than wishful thinking. Poland is raising its defensive spending.
They got to be careful, though, because it's not about just buying this equipment. That, yeah, cool, buy 20 tanks or whatever. But you've also got to maintain it and have the money to maintain it. So if they don't have... Well, we've seen this in the past, right? If a country doesn't have the capability of maintaining this equipment, then it all gets old. Look at Russia. Like, it gets old, it starts to decay, it starts to get broken. And before you know it, you've just wasted a bunch of money. So as long as they've got enough money to back it up, then that's fine.
From 2.4% of their GDP to a whopping 5%. This is more than even the United States. It also puts other NATO partners to shame who have largely struggled to meet the bare minimum requirement set by the alliance of 2%. This is a long-term commitment too, as the country is determined to double the size of its military by 2035, from 150,000 to 300,000. Those troops are gonna need combat gear though, and Poland is buying it in spades. In exchange for sending 240 Soviet-made tanks to Ukraine, the US cut Poland a deal for 250 Abrams, a significant upgrade to its land forces.
Yeah,
but the nation was paying very close attention to the fighting in Ukraine and has made a direct bid to Lockheed Martin to buy around 500 HIMARS units. This was an incredible order and would have made Poland as big an operator of HIMARS as the United States. Unfortunately, the U.S. was itself procuring units to replace those sent to Ukraine and to make even more available to the country. Given that the war in Ukraine has been basically one giant commercial for Lockheed Martin, it's no surprise that other nations were already in line to buy the vaunted guided rocket artillery, even with the U.S. wishing to beef up its own numbers. With the U.S. in effect sold out for the foreseeable future, Poland turned to South Korea for its guided rocket artillery need, signing an order for 288 Chunmu platforms. Similar to HIMARS, only beefier, the Chunmu can carry twice as many rockets as HIMARS, though at the cost of mobility. With a significant standing army in the works, though, Poland believes the trade-off is worth it. Its rocket artillery will have to do less hiding thanks to major investments in other areas of its military. This includes the Air Force, with Poland signing an agreement to buy 32 F-35s. Poland shocked the world when it once more returned to South Korea for multiple military purchases, in effect sourcing almost all of its new purchases from the nation. Purchases include a fleet of 48 F-A-50s. These are meant to replace its aging fleet of MiGs and will complement its inventory of F-16s and soon F-35s. While Poland won't have a major air force anytime soon, it's well on its way to being a significant threat to Russia should it ever make the mistake of crossing into its airspace. Beefing up its traditional tube artillery, Poland is also buying 648 K9 howitzers from South Korea.
648. They really are beefing up their shit out there. Holy cow.
Also make Poland one of, if not the biggest artillery power in Europe, aside from Russia, especially when coupled with its purchase of 288 Chunmu MLRSs.
Cow.
By far the highest profile item on Poland's shopping list, though, and one that has really annoyed its neighbor, is the purchase of nearly 1,000 K2 main battle tanks. The K2 was originally designed by South Korea and is believed to be a highly...
They really need to back this up. They really need to make sure they've got well-trained soldiers for this, which is even more difficult than just spending money. They need to make sure their soldiers are trained efficiently on this equipment, which is hard work, and then maintaining that equipment as well, which is also hard work.
Capable modern tank. Its real capabilities are unknown, though, as the tank has never seen combat and the South Korean government isn't in a hurry to make classified data public. Most observers, however, have full confidence in the K2, though Russian defense analysts are puzzled by the design decision to not have the tank launch its crew into orbit upon taking a hit from an anti-tank missile. The main concern raised by Poland's purchase power, however, is that the K2 was specifically built for a war South Korea expected to fight on its relatively hilly terrain, a far cry from the flat European plain. How the K2 will fare here is anyone's guess, and hopefully we'll never have to find out.
Hopefully not.
Poland's South Korea spending spree has made the two countries absolutely chummy, and that's something that's really annoyed the rest of Europe. Home to many great tank manufacturers, Europe is frankly puzzled at Poland's decision to purchase tanks from a nation half a world away, especially when its logistics will depend on easily disrupted supply routes that literally span the planet.
Why does it really matter? I mean, if they're friends, they're friends. That's a good thing. They're all Western. Well, they're not Western. South Korea's not a Western country, but it's a capitalistic country. So it still has the same values, right? So why not?
But the decision makes a lot of sense if South Korea plans to break into the global arms market, and if the nation builds maintenance facilities inside of Poland itself. This will secure Poland's logistics needs and open the door to the European arms market for South Korea, a deal that benefits both sides. Germany has famously been the United States' most important European ally, but now Germany's become nothing more than a logistics hub for the American military. With the invasion of Ukraine by Russia, Poland has now become America's most important European ally, and the relationship was cemented by U.S. officials commenting on that fact. Perhaps unsurprising given its proximity to Russia, Poland was the loudest voice calling for Europe to aid Ukraine and threw its doors open to Ukrainian refugees. Its airfields and transport networks were immediately made available to the U.S. and other foreign aid.
So basically, they turned around and said, look what's going on next door. We are going to be backup for everyone, and we're going to have everyone be able to go through us to help out as well. I get it. Because at the end of the day, if this works out and the U.S. are like, all right, we're going to build some bases here, and we're going to use it as, it's only going to bring more money in that they can use to spend more on maintaining this equipment. It's only going to help them, innit? So well done, Poland.
Flowing into Ukraine. And when a Ukrainian air defense missile landed in Poland and killed several people, the nation put the blame squarely on Russia for necessitating the launch of said missile by Ukraine in the first place.
Yeah.
Given Poland's history and tenuous strategic position in Europe, it's no surprise that it's incredibly invested in the outcome of the war in Ukraine. What is surprising, however, is the incredible speed with which the country has moved to bolster its defenses and the willingness to work with the United States to arm Ukraine. Given its position inside of Europe and the military capabilities it'll soon field, it's easy to see why Poland will soon trump the rest of the European powers as America's most important ally in the region.
Why not?
What remains to be seen, however, is if the nation will go through with all of its planned purchases, especially if the war in Ukraine ends sooner than expected and the Polish population grows weary of the incredible price tags of some of these weapons. Now,
And maintaining them. And maintaining them. What a great video. Go over there, give it a like, subscribe, and all that good stuff. Fantastic video, very informative. I honestly thought, I didn't know a lot of that stuff, so I thought it was really, really good. Bit strange to go back to reacting to military stuff, even though it is, you know, it's infographic show, it's not actual military footage. What did you think? You want to see more of this? Let me know in the comment section down below. But for now, members, you're beautiful, you're amazing. I love you. I couldn't make these videos without you. So thank you for supporting the channel as much as you do. I genuinely appreciate it. There'll be a link down below to the OG video. Please go over there and give it a like and a subscribe. Other than that, guys, I love you all. Have a wonderful day. Goodbye.